What if every time you had to go meet your friends, or you had to have a gathering with your family members, or you had to meet a colleague that you respect very much, what if every time you had to do those things, you first had to drink yourself to the point where you feel comfortable to meet them? Drug yourself with prescription or non-prescription drugs to the point where you have to feel comfortable to meet them. Smoke yourself to the point where you feel comfortable enough to meet them. What if you had to do this for 5 years? Worse yet, what if you had to do this for a lifetime? What if? My name is Kizito Musabimana, and I am from Rwanda. And as many of you know, Rwanda went through the genocide against Tutsi about 2 decades ago. That saw almost 1 million people slaughtered in less than 100 days. I'm talking about entire families gone. Children with no mothers or fathers, mothers burying their sons or daughters. I'm talking about days, weeks, months, bodies of bodies left for months. Dogs eating fresh and going crazy. I'm talking about the images, the experiences, the things that you can only, even to imagine it is almost impossible. I'm talking about the things that we, the Rwandese community, have gone through. I was 11 years old at the time, and the things that I saw changed my life forever. I spent my entire life trying to forget what had gone on in my past, in our past, trying to forget the images we'd seen, trying to forget all the experiences that we had gone through. I spent my entire life trying to do this. But like many people in my community, I was not successful. I couldn't be. Because these things never go anywhere. These things stay with us. The heaviness of it. Walking around and really just trying to figure out what it is you just saw, what it is you just experienced. You realize that it's impossible, so you choose to press it and not talk about it. And so I tried to do that. And for years, all this did was glow as I tried to oppress it and try not to think about it and try not to talk about it. Never really wanted to do that. It wasn't until recently, as I struggled through the aftermath, as I went through the struggles of trying to figure out what was going on, as my body began to do things that I couldn't understand. It wasn't until I finally went and did enough look within myself to find out what I needed to do. It wasn't until I began to discuss what I had gone through with other people that there were many people in my community who were suffering through the same thing that I am going through, that I was going through. Going to the doctor, taking medications, didn't work. And so what was I to do? And I remember in 2005, as the movie Hotel Rwanda came out, I went with a friend of mine and her sister, and we got in the theater, we sat down, and we were about to watch the movie. And as soon as the film began roaring, I got up and walked away. I didn't know why I did that, I just did. And I remember it vividly, that moment I could not understand what I had just done. I had not done that before. And it took me about 2 years for the symptoms to actually begin surfacing for everyone to see. About 2007, 2008, things just got crazy. My body couldn't function. You know, it first was little things like drink more, you know, smoke cigarettes you never smoked in your entire adult life, or even in my youth. As I began doing things that I couldn't explain myself to myself, you know, couldn't go anywhere. You know, my body just, you know, began having anxieties and trying to not do things, but then they will happen. I'll have to throw up before I meet people. All these things happened to me over the course of 5 years. And as I went through them, I got to a point where I realized I had to figure it out. I had to learn about it. I had to understand who I was, why I was going through this. And this led me to also talk about and looking at the community and what they were going through as well. Many of us are lucky to get to this point where we can actually work on ourselves. I was the lucky one. I am the lucky one. As I listen and as I talk to people in our community, I know that this thing is killing us. It's killing everything we are about. We can't function past this. We can't look at our future the way we once did. It's just the most difficult thing. I know because I've been through it. And it is because of this. It is because of this that I have decided to take a walk from Toronto to Montreal, working to raise awareness to the psychological effects of war, to show and to allow our people, the people in our community, to show them that it is good to talk about these things, to embrace our past, because that's the only thing we can do, to take it on and say, what is there that I can get from all the trouble, from all the struggles, from all the difficulties that we went through? What is there that I can pick from it, that I can use going forward? This is our life. We can't take it. We can't. It's with us forever. And so if it's with us forever, then how do we live with it? The best way, I believe, to live with it, the way I did it, is embracing it and asking questions and talking about it and sharing it. And I understand that we don't all get there at the same time. And that's why I'm coming to the community, to the people in Canada, to anyone who watches this, that asking you to help us to raise awareness, to allow to open this door and show people that this stigma needs to go away, that the mental health issue that is coming from the PTSD, that this thing needs to be seen as an injury like any other injury that happens to an individual. That we come to a place where we can communicate and talk about these things. We finally start talking about these things that we go through because of our past experiences. The other thing I'm doing on this journey, I am petitioning the government of Canada, the House of Commons for the government of Canada, to help us, to facilitate, to allow for us to build a center for healing, where these people, survivors of genocide, and all these people who went through it, who saw and who are struggling through these things, can go and share and talk and experience this moment of togetherness where we can actually learn from one another. And I know this is being done already, so all I'm doing is just asking the Canadian community, if you're a Canadian resident or a citizen, to help us sign this petition, asking them to facilitate, to help us in establishing a home, a center for people who went through these struggles, for people who need to talk and discuss these things, a place where they can go and meet. And I'm also doing one other thing. I am going back home after this journey, and it is for the first time in over 2 decades. And the reason for me going back home is because I realized that it's going to take going back to where it all began in order to really continue to share this discussion, but also to allow these wounds to really heal. And so I realize now that I must go back home to complete this journey of healing. And the healing through these mental issues is not a thing you do once. You have to do, it's a lifetime journey. And so I will be documenting the journey. I will be talking to people in Rwanda to see how they did it. How were they able to do it? And just to see if they are struggling through it, just to share. For that's the only way we can move forward with this. And so I will document the journey. I will showcase the development of Rwanda, of course the healing, and in hopes that we can all bring this together and really begin to discuss this issue. The psychological wounds of war is real, and it should not be a stigma in a community. And if it is, let's not make it that. And that is why I am doing the work from Toronto to Montreal, to raise this awareness, to help us really embrace these things, because they are a part of us. Whether we like it or not, they are a part of us. And so please join me. Join me by raising the awareness, by sharing this message to the world. Do whatever you can do. The idea is that we have to learn about what we went through, really learn about it, because once we have this aftermath, the psychological effects, the wounds of war, as Romeo Dallaire calls them, once we get to that level, we have to relearn who we are. How do we fit into these things? And once we get to that level, then we have to communicate. We have to share these messages with one another. And then I believe we also have to tell these stories to the world. So the world, you can help us with the word of mouth, by sharing, and in whatever way possible you can support us, including funding and all those things. Because we can't all do this alone. We need support. We need the helping hand, whatever way we can get it. We need that. And so join me on this walk from Toronto to Montreal as we walk to raise awareness, to continue from what other people have started, in order to allow for us to have this discussion and to heal. Because I believe the only way to do this is to come together to discuss these things. And we don't all get there at the same time. But for those of us that are ready, for those of us that are going through this aftermath, for those of us that are struggling, it is time to talk about this. It's been 22 years, and I realize that it has been a long time, but the further you go, the more difficult it becomes, because you're not talking about it, you're suppressing it. And the suppression of these emotions, of these images, of these feelings, of this hurt, is what causes us to have even greater struggles as we go through this. And so I ask you, once again, join me, go to our site, share our Facebook page, and let's do this together. Thank you very much.